All right, let's talk about the Ravens. There's not a ton to talk about with them. Basically, two names that come up. One is Rashad Bateman, who I accidentally said last time, and you like him to the moon, much like Hurts. But I do think there's maybe one other guy to bring up, which is Mark Andrews.
Of course.
Who I want to ask, is he your tight end one now?
It's still Kelsey.
Is he at least in the conversation?
He is. He's in the same tier as Kelsey. Before it was tier Kelsey, tier Mark Andrews, and maybe it should never have been that way because Mark Andrews was the tight end one last year. Yeah. So he already showed that. I just was ultimately with Kelsey, no Tyreek Hill there now. Like, I think Kelsey could go bananas with like 200 something targets. We're going to talk about that Chiefs passing attack in a little bit and like try to decipher that wide receiver depth chart, but it might not matter. It might just be everything goes to Travis Kelsey. So in that sense, like if I'm picking one or the other, I'm going to go with the one that's tied to Mahomes, given that I think they'll see similar opportunity. But Andrews, like if we're starting with him, I mean, 154 targets, first among tight ends, target rate, 27%, first among tight ends. Unbelievable just everywhere in terms of routes run, number 2, route participation, number 3, slot snaps, number 2, big glorified receiver, number 1 in receptions, 107, number 1 in yards, 1361. And as we already said, number 1 in fantasy points per game with 17.7. No stat will tell you anything but Andrews dominated. And now you remove a guy that saw 145 targets that had nearly as many as him. It just all wheels up. It's only getting better and better for Andrews. So, yeah, the more I talk about it, it's like maybe he should be ahead of Kelsey. I don't know.
Right now you have Mark Andrews. He is the last guy in tier 1 on your big board. He's number 16.
Yeah, for like the overall big board, right?
Right. On the overall big board, you got him the last guy. And that tier 1, that's elite company. You have Kelsey currently at 12. So, they're in the same ballpark.
Not far. Yeah, he's at, I believe, 16. So those are like the round 1 grades. 16 players I have him on. He rounds out that tier, but especially in best ball where you get a huge edge from having these. And I just think in fantasy in general, when you look at all the teams at the end of the year, the team with Andrews last year, the team with Kelsey almost every year, it seems like the teams with the elite tight ends, because there's so few of them, it always ends up panning out well. So I feel like I need to bump those guys up. But yeah,
I will say you have him below Stephon Diggs. I think I probably like him above Stephon Diggs.
That's true. Yeah. But, Diggs could be the wide receiver one, too, given all the targets they lost in Buffalo. We'll talk about Gabe Davis a little bit, who we love as well.
We sure will.
We'll look at Bateman, though. And there's certainly a ton of targets here. We've been referencing available air yards, vacated air yards. My man John Daigle does a great job now with 4 for 4 tracking all this. The Ravens are 4th with 2,311 air yards available. 198 wide receiver targets. That's top 5 as well. So lots of available volume for Rashad Bateman, who every week, it was so frustrating. I had him last year waiting for that breakout because every time he got targeted, it was like a big boy catch. He was making a play over somebody. He was zipping down the field and looking incredibly smooth for a guy that was hurt nearly all of training camp. There was just you could tell this guy was next level, but he never got that next level usage.
He never really popped.
He deserved. What's that?
He never really popped.
Never did. And it was so frustrating because if he ever saw the volume, it was so clear he would pop. He ranked number 5 in contested catch rate. The guy has 4.39 speed. Everyone thinks of him as this just possession receiver, but for a big body, he can truly burn. So not quite Marquise Brown as a separator and burning down the field, but he can certainly take the top off the defense and get deep. And now that he's going to step right into that de facto number 1 receiver, Andrews will probably see more targets, but I do think 120-ish coming his way is going to be absolutely enormous. So big leap up the big board for Rashad Bateman coming into this year as the number 1 target for Lamar Jackson, who I think is the single most overrated quarterback in fantasy. Am I nuts?
No, you're not nuts. And actually, we ran this back a week ago, and I made a comparison that you actually liked, which is, we chase these guys' greatest moments in their career. And Lamar Jackson was truly what was it, 2 or 3 years ago? He was just absolutely lights out. He won the MVP. He could do no wrong. He was an amazing real game quarterback, and he was a real amazing fantasy quarterback. And he hasn't looked like that since then. But we've seen it. So it's like we chase it again and again. And the guy I compared him to is Cam Newton, who also had a real apex. And then we chased it for a few years after that, and we were chasing fool's gold.
Exactly. I think Cam Newton is a perfect comparison. He had an MVP year and was never even really close to that. And for years and years, we chased him as a top 5 guy, and it never panned out. Last year, Lamar Jackson had only 5 games as a top 12 quarterback, 42% of his games played. The other ones were pretty low too. That's the tough part about him is it's
his
not
floor
like
is down there. Yeah,
it is low for sure. And so back-to-back years finishing, let me double check here. He finished as the quarterback 15 last year and quarterback 10 the year before, after, again, setting the world on fire with the most quarterback points we've ever seen
like ever,
one year by Mahomes. It was great. It was amazing. And yes, he's still going to have insane Konami upside more than anybody in the league. That's never going to go away. And that's what makes him so special as a fantasy product. 1,200 yards, 1,000 yards, but then 700 yards. So that's also going down. And yes, that is games played. He only had 12 games. That's also part of the rub here is because he's running and taking such big hits, he's not that thick of a guy. Those injuries are going to start to come the more and more that happens. So, 9 in points per game. So I said 15 last year. Yeah, I'll give him the benefit of that, but still 9, 10. He's getting drafted as the quarterback 4.
That's stupid.
I would talk about Jalen Hurts. Give me him all day.
Well, how many games did you say Lamar was a top 12 quarterback? 4 or 5?
5.
Okay, I mean, compare that to Hurts.
5 of his 12 games. Yeah, exactly. 67% of the time in more games, Jalen Hurts was the number 1 quarterback.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, and now I weapons. So
I think it's a good point. I wouldn't touch
I'm
this
with
guy.
you. Absolutely. So yeah, I think he's the single most overrated quarterback, Lamar Jackson, in fantasy right now. If I got him as the quarterback 9 in the draft, sure, okay, but he's not going there. I won't have him on a single team this year. So if he goes MVP mode again, I'm fucked. But I won't do it. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.